The first time anyone saw the engine, it was sitting beneath a torn gray tarp in the corner of a sunlit garage, covered in dust, oil stains, and years of disappointment. It looked dead. Forgotten. Worthless. But the man kneeling beside it looked at it the way people look at broken things they still love. And on the morning he was fired for refusing to abandon it, no one in that building could have imagined that same dead engine would one day scream across a racetrack faster than any machine in history. Before we begin, take one moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Wisdom Story House, if you believe kindness and second chances can change someone's life forever. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the world gives up on people long before they are truly finished. The summer sun hung low over the industrial district of Riverside Heights, pouring golden light across rusted warehouses and cracked concrete roads. Mechanics shouted over the noise of drills and steel grinders while the smell of gasoline drifted through the hot air like smoke from old memories. Inside Mercer Dynamics, one of the city's most respected automotive companies, everyone moved with urgency except one man standing quietly beside an engine nobody cared about anymore. His name was Elias Varden, a 38-year-old mechanic with tired blue eyes and hands permanently stained black from years of rebuilding machines others had abandoned. He was not famous. He was not wealthy. Most people inside Mercer Dynamics barely noticed him. They only knew him as the strange senior mechanic who stayed after hours talking to broken engines as if they were alive. 3 years earlier, Elias had lost everything. His younger brother, Rowan, had died during a racing accident caused by engine failure. The crash destroyed more than a race car. It shattered Elias's spirit. For months after the funeral, he disappeared into silence, barely speaking to anyone except through his work. While others moved on, Elias became obsessed with one idea that haunted him every night: creating an engine so powerful and reliable that no driver would ever lose their life because of mechanical failure again. That dream became the engine hidden under the tarp. Every lunch break, every unpaid overtime hour, every sleepless night was poured into that machine. Elias rebuilt it piece by piece from discarded parts scavenged from scrapyards and old race vehicles. People laughed at him constantly. Younger mechanics mocked him behind his back. Supervisors warned him to focus on real company projects. But Elias ignored all of it. He wasn't chasing money. He was chasing redemption. The only person who openly hated the project was Celeste Mercer, the company's sharp and ambitious CEO. At 44, Celeste had inherited Mercer Dynamics from her father and transformed it into a profitable corporation. She believed in numbers, deadlines, and efficiency. Emotion had no place in her world. To her, Elias represented everything slowing the company down: sentiment, obsession, wasted time. One blazing afternoon, she walked into the garage unexpectedly while Elias adjusted the engine's fuel system beneath hanging rays of sunlight. Sweat dripped down his forehead. The machine vibrated softly as if breathing for the first time. Celeste stood silently for a moment before asking how many company hours had been wasted on the project. Elias tried explaining that the engine was different. Revolutionary. He spoke with trembling passion about torque efficiency, airflow innovation, and safety stabilization systems unlike anything currently on the market. But Celeste saw only spreadsheets and deadlines. The company had investors arriving in 2 weeks. Employees were already overworked. And here stood a mechanic risking resources on what looked like a pile of scrap metal. The decision came quickly. By sunset, Elias was fired. Security escorted him out while workers watched in uncomfortable silence. Nobody defended him. Nobody stopped him. He carried only a small toolbox and one photograph of his brother folded inside his jacket pocket. As he reached the parking lot, he looked back at the garage where his engine still sat alone under the fading sunlight. For a long moment, he almost gave up. But grief has a strange way of creating stubborn people. That night, Elias rented a tiny abandoned garage on the edge of the city beside an old train yard. The roof leaked when it rained. Rats lived in the walls. The electricity failed constantly. Yet every morning before sunrise, Elias returned to work on the engine. Some days he skipped meals because he could not afford both food and replacement parts. He sold his car. Then his furniture. Then the watch his brother had once given him. Everything disappeared piece by piece except his determination. Weeks turned into months. Outside the garage, life moved on without him. Mercer Dynamics announced a major partnership with professional racing sponsors. Celeste appeared on business magazines smiling beside expensive sports cars. Meanwhile, Elias worked alone in heat, dust, and silence, chasing a dream nobody believed in anymore. But slowly, the impossible began happening. The engine started working. Not just working, evolving. Its design created extraordinary power while using far less fuel than traditional racing systems. The stabilization mechanics reduced dangerous vibration at high speed. Every test produced results that seemed unreal. Elias began recording data in worn notebooks filled with grease fingerprints and sleepless calculations. Then came the day that changed everything. A local amateur racer named Matteo Quinn visited the garage after hearing rumors about a mechanic building an unusual engine. Matteo had talent but no sponsors. He drove damaged second-hand race cars just to survive. The moment he saw the engine running, his eyes widened with disbelief. He offered Elias a deal. One race. One chance. If the engine failed, nobody would ever hear about it again. If it succeeded, everything could change. The Riverside Track Championship arrived under bright afternoon skies packed with roaring crowds and television crews. Wealthy teams unloaded polished race cars worth millions while Elias and Matteo arrived in a rust-covered trailer held together with duct tape and hope. Spectators laughed openly when they saw them. Even Celeste Mercer attended the event with investors seated beside her in a luxury viewing deck overlooking the track. She barely recognized Elias at first. He looked thinner now. Older. Exhausted. But there was something different in his eyes. A quiet certainty. When the race began, nobody paid attention to Matteo's car near the back of the lineup. The first laps passed predictably with elite teams dominating the track. Engines screamed through the sunlight while commentators discussed sponsorship deals and championship histories. Then lap 17 happened. Matteo accelerated down the straightaway. And the entire stadium fell silent. The car exploded forward with terrifying speed, slicing between competitors like a silver bullet. Spectators rose from their seats in confusion. Commentators stumbled over their words. Timing systems flashed impossible numbers across giant digital screens. The engine wasn't just fast. It was rewriting physics. By lap 23, Matteo held first place. By lap 30, the engine had shattered the track speed record. Mechanics from rival teams stared in disbelief as the once laughed-at vehicle dominated machines worth 20 times more. Television cameras focused on Elias standing quietly near the pit lane, tears forming in his eyes as the engine roared like a living heartbeat across the track. And in the luxury deck above, Celeste Mercer stopped breathing for a moment when she realized the truth. The dead engine she fired him for had become the greatest innovation the racing world had ever seen. News spread globally overnight. Videos of the race flooded social media. Engineers demanded technical analysis. Racing organizations called the engine a miracle. Journalists hunted for interviews with the mysterious mechanic who built it alone in a collapsing garage. For the first time in years, Elias became visible to the world. But success did not erase pain. Late one evening after the race, Elias sat alone outside his garage listening to distant trains rumble through the darkness. In his hands rested the old photograph of Rowan. The victory should have felt complete, but grief still lingered quietly inside him like an old scar that never fully healed. Because the engine had never truly been about speed. It had always been about his brother. About guilt. About surviving when someone else didn't. A few days later, Celeste Mercer arrived unexpectedly at the garage. Expensive black heels stepped carefully across oil-stained concrete while afternoon sunlight poured through broken windows. For a long time, neither of them spoke. She looked around slowly at the leaking roof, the worn tools, the stacks of notebooks filled with years of sacrifice. Only then did she fully understand what she had destroyed when she fired him. Not just a mechanic. A grieving man trying to build meaning from loss. Celeste apologized quietly, admitting she had judged him only by productivity reports and deadlines. She confessed that after inheriting the company, she became so obsessed with protecting it that she forgot innovation often looks foolish before it changes the world. Elias listened silently. Then he surprised her. He forgave her. Not because forgetting pain was easy, but because carrying bitterness for too long eventually destroys the person holding it. Together, they formed an unlikely partnership. Mercer Dynamics funded further development while Elias insisted the technology prioritize driver safety above profit. The engine stabilization system soon reduced catastrophic racing accidents worldwide. Drivers who once feared dangerous high-speed failures now trusted their vehicles in ways they never had before. And somewhere in every roaring engine Elias heard a quiet echo of his brother's memory living on. Years later, under blazing daylight at the International Velocity Championship, a newly designed race car powered by Elias's technology broke the world speed record before millions of viewers across the globe. Crowds erupted into thunderous applause while cameras captured Elias standing near the track with tears shining openly in his eyes. Not because he had become rich. Not because the world finally respected him. But because the thing everyone called worthless had saved lives. The same engine once hidden beneath a dusty tarp in a forgotten garage had become proof that broken dreams are not always dead. Sometimes they are simply waiting for someone stubborn enough to believe in them longer than everyone else. And maybe that is the hardest lesson life teaches us. The world often abandons people right before their greatest moment arrives. So before this story ends, take a second to comment where you are watching from and share this video with someone who may be struggling silently right now. You never know who needs a reminder not to give up on themselves. Elias eventually returned to the old train yard garage one final time many years later. The city had changed around it. New buildings towered where abandoned warehouses once stood. But inside the dusty room, sunlight still streamed through the same cracked windows where impossible dreams were once built in silence. He placed Rowan's photograph carefully on the old workbench and smiled softly. Not every broken thing stays broken forever. Some rise again louder, faster, and stronger than anyone ever imagined. And if this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom Story House so more people can hear stories that remind us hope still exists in this world. Because sometimes the people everyone gives up on are the ones who end up changing everything.